Welcome to another episode of the Prep Coach podcast, and MG's back.
Back.
Tell us what happened. Tell us the update.
Which injury?
Well, yeah, I know. Tell us the ear situation, because that's the reason why you didn't make it to the last one.
Yes, so my ears unfortunately has still not in a good way, full of fluid, and the fluid, and you might be able to explain this a little bit better, but when you get edema in an area or fluid, the longer that fluid sticks around for, it starts to, I suppose, change, evolve, get a little bit thicker, get a little bit older, get a little bit more...
A little gunkier.
Yeah, so the ear surgeon basically said it's not called fluid anymore, we call it goop now.
Goop.
And I was like, this is such a fucking disgusting word. So to get the goop out, they'll just go in there, they'll do a procedure, they'll nick the ear open, they'll put a tube in there, which will stay in there for a couple of months to allow it to actually heal, ventilate. Otherwise, the fluid will just...
So nothing's been done at the moment?
No.
When are you going to go for
Well,
it?
we just thought we'd give it another 2 weeks to see if 2 weeks at home, less stress, more sleep, normal routine, if it helped to alleviate it. He said highly unlikely because as the fluid gets more goopier, it's harder to come out.
Yeah,
It's probably not going to happen. So the symptoms are sort of getting worse.
Yeah.
And at this point, which is 6 weeks, he would have thought that they'd actually start to get a lot better.
Okay.
And the fact that they've clearly gotten worse, not
Yeah.
improved, is a pretty good sign that without sort of human intervention, they're not going to change. It's just the 24/7 ringing.
That's not good.
It's terrible. And then it changed. There was a week where it went from like 24/7 ringing to like Morse code. Yeah, and it was like, oh, maybe that's a sign of like
it's coming out, like it's
or
bubbling
opening up, or it's really common. So I started to look into it. It's like, wow, there actually is a Morse code type symptom from this type of ear problem. So crazy.
And okay, so then that's
So
that.
I went away 2 weeks.
And then the other injury?
Oh my god. Yeah, so you guys saw me just hop in here. I didn't say anything, just quiet, trying not to draw attention to it.
First thing I said is, are you limping?
Yeah, my back. Same issue from last time.
Not as bad though.
Not as bad, but same sciatica pinch. Fingers crossed. Goes well. Last time, you guys remember, I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah, it was bad.
Like, it was really, really bad.
Yeah.
There's been some pretty extreme pain moments, but certainly they're like really acute and really short.
Mm-hmm.
The issues from just walking are like every time I do take a step, there's that slight little pinch, which you feel all the way from the left side lower, which is L4, L5, S1, and it just kind of goes down the glute, down the hamstring, towards the toes.
Because you still technically have a bulge there, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I did that round of injections last time, the second round, so they inject into the disc, which there's two parts to it. One is a steroid to try and heal, and the other one is actually a nerve root blocker.
Oh.
So it actually stops the sciatica from feeling the compression. Now it's been 15 months. It doesn't last 15 months.
Okay.
So it might only last weeks. It might last months. Everyone's different, but it's not that's the only reason. Yeah, it wore off a long time ago. So the injection did what it was supposed to do. Maybe pulled some of the inflammation out that was contributing to the compression, and I was able to then rehab and get stronger.
Yeah.
Should I tell everyone what I was doing?
Yeah, just tell them how you did it.
I was picking up a plastic rake that weighed less than 100 grams. It was one of Talia's little fake gardening tools because we garden together. No joke, man. It's the size of my hand and it weighs nothing.
Sometimes
I just leaned over. I didn't bend the knees. I just,
yeah, of course,
keeping an eye on her. And straight away, man, I just felt the pinch and I was like, oh, shit.
Some of the simple things. Because didn't you put up the other day a story as if you were kind of getting back into training?
Yeah, horse, I am.
Yeah.
I was.
Picking up a rake and then...
Pick it up. Well, remember how it happened last time? It was just drying myself with a towel.
That's right. So, yeah, okay.
But like when you're exercising, you're putting yourself in the right position, you're bracing.
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah.
And you're picking up a 100-gram piece of paper.
Yeah. Well, you should listen to our last podcast because we answered the question about rehabs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did too.
Yeah. We answered that question. We got good feedback about that too. Yeah, Phil enjoyed it. Yeah,
good.
They enjoyed it. Okay, well, let's hope you stay injury-free for the rest of the year.
First priority is the year.
Let's get the year sorted.
And you can't do that soon, can you? Because you got the...
Not on a family holiday.
Yeah.
And
north. Where is it? Cairns, isn't it?
Yeah, Port Douglas.
Yeah.
And I haven't been away. Well, Talia's never been on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been away with me for so long. I don't want to jeopardize that holiday.
Okay.
And of course, having that surgery, the pressure, the altitude.
No, just hopefully the pressure and the altitude change doesn't...
Yeah, it's going to suck.
But you've been putting earplugs in when you fly,
Yeah,
right?
I've got these like
Epic
intense
Yeah.
ones that
Screw
really
in.
wind all the way in
Yeah.
and completely close it off.
Yeah. Okay.
So they definitely help a little bit, but the pressure is the pressure. It's only the way down. It's not the way up at all.
Yeah. Okay.
What would that be?
I don't know. Normally, you do tend to chew chewy though whenever we fly like on the way up.
I
Do you have
always chew or have mints or always.
Yeah, you do. You've had one before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the plane, like non-negotiable.
All right, let's get to some questions.
I'm just thinking about that goo.
the good.
I don't know, in my head, it's just
I'll
thinking
get
about like green slime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm picturing like yellow.
Yeah.
I reckon it's like a greeny yellow, yeah.
And then the tube will stay in there for a couple of months.
It'll be a tiny little.
Yeah, it won't be big.
You won't even be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
How deep into the canal do they go? Because you're obviously, if you're trying to wring your ears out.
Yeah, like it's the thing he explained is like if you think of a grommet for a child, the reason why a grommet will pop out on its own is because the child is growing, but as a fully developed adult,
Okay.
it will need to be taken out. That's the main difference between like.
That's what I thought. I was like, don't the grommets just fall out?
Yeah, I think it's because they're growing.
Yeah. Okay.
The ear's evolving, but as a
Adult.
40-year-old male,
All right, let's get into it.
getting old, it's awesome.
Okay, we're going to start with some reverse and recovery questions. What are the biggest mistakes athletes make in their first 4 weeks post-comp? I know you said in the last podcast, give me the first week.
Give me the first 2 weeks.
Give me the first 2 weeks. Give me the first 2 months.
First 2 weeks, you get them right. The next 2 months will be right. And if the first 2 months are right, you'll usually sail off into the improvement.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes?
Pre-planned social events that are all around food.
Yeah.
I think just completely leaving behind everything. It's, if you think about it objectively and logically, you've been eating a certain way for say 7 or 8 months, even in the pre-prep phase, and you go into a gain-taining period, you're still very much eating the same foods, just likely more of them. So if you finish and then all of a sudden you introduce highly palatable food when you know that your ability to be satiated is drastically compromised, and it's going to be for a period of time, and then you just completely change the different types of foods that you're eating, the macronutrient components of those foods, you're going to see a fair bit of turbulence as far as digestion is concerned. But also you are going to open yourself up to some pretty rapid weight gain, and it's a pretty vicious cycle where, and it's that whole, scratch the wheel, fuck it, write the Ferrari off.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing that you can do, as opposed to just, and again, the way I explained it, and I used my athlete as an example when we had that PD session the other day, is saying that a week ago, if I said to you, I'm going to give you an extra 250 or 300 grams of carbohydrate, you're going to have this amount of rice, amount of potato, you'd be like, oh my God, this is heaven.
Amazing.
You would have been compliant.
And you would have stuck to it.
Yeah, so it's the same thing, but just because the show's now done, you still need to have that mentality that there's another 2 weeks, like once those first 2.5-3 kilos are on, and you've accrued some of that, essential fat mass, you'll be in a much better position to be able to be a little bit more sensible and to be, rational when you go out. There may be heaps of food floating around. It might not even be something that you want to eat. You're like, fuck it, yeah, I can eat this now. Just because you can have something, doesn't mean you should have something.
So, because you brought up the PD session that we had with the Team G coaches, 2 other things that we touched on when we were discussing that is the percentage rate of gain in the first week or 2, and also how many more calories you give someone in the first bump in calories you give from their lowest low in prep. So do you want to go through what percentage weight gain you want to see in maybe that first 1 to 2 weeks?
Yeah, so everyone would have their own generic guidelines, and again, obviously it's relevant to the division, but for the most part, most of my guys, usually around about 3% of body weight is what I'd expect to see within sort of the first week.
Gained.
Of body weight gain. So if you're, again, let's say that you're 80 kilos, you're talking about roughly gaining 2 to 2.5 kilos in that first week. And then once you've hit that sort of 10 to 14 days, 3 to 5%, usually you'll see in order to achieve that, you'll need to increase a decent amount of carbohydrate, but you also need to be mindful that you're also eating more food volume. There's additional carbohydrate. There's more fluid to partition that. There's likely more sodium to go with that. So all of that weight that's gained isn't just fat mass. Some of that is. But if you work off a premise, everyone talks about, 1 kilo of fat, 7,700 calories. But if you look at a kilo of mixed human tissue, and same with when we lose fat or we're in prep when we're dieting, it's not all lipid. So if we say that, a kilo of mixed human tissue is around 6 to 6,500 calories, if you're factoring that in, I want this athlete to gain roughly 1.5 kilos, maybe that means I need an extra 1,000 calories a day, bearing in mind that they may still gain 2.5 kilos that week, but they're probably eating an additional 500 grams of food potentially per day. There's an increase in the amount of carbohydrate they're having, so there's going to be more fluid partition in the cell. So there's all those things that you need to factor in. But what I have found anecdotally, and again, what we're seeing more and more, especially with females, looking at the menstrual cycle and the recovery side of things, the quicker someone returns back to baseline within that time span, they're more likely, at least on the female side of things, from an endocrinological perspective, to come back online and to restore some of those endo markers. But for a lot of males as well, they tend to feel a lot better. For me, I've just never really understood, rather than gain a kilo and then reverse and go slow, at some point, your body is going to get its way and it's going to force you to regain that weight. So if you do that over 24 weeks, and then the likelihood is you'll end up in the exact same position as the person who maybe gained 3 to 5% in the first 10 days. And then maybe they're around that 12 to 15% at that 4 to 6 week mark. But once they get to that point, they're feeling a lot better. They're back to training again. They're back into routine. And the likelihood is at that 6 month mark, you guys are in the exact same position. The difference is the person who regained some of that earlier is training better. They've probably acquired more tissue, performance is better, recovery is better. And their relationship with food and the sport is so much better. So at the end of the day, when you finish a comp, everything that you're then doing is contributing to the next show that you're going to do. So the way I'm thinking of it is me restricting and holding on and trying to stay lean. Is that going to make me more competitive, in the next 2027 or 2030, whenever you're going to compete? If the answer is no, then you put your trust in your coach for this long. You have to be willing to accept that you're going to need to regain some fat mass. Maybe aesthetically, it's not your best look, but you can guarantee that you're going to feel so much better. Your relationship with food, your libido, your sleep, all of those markers are going to be so much better. And I think you have to factor all of those things in, because those that don't, and typically those that stay in a state of lower energy availability, especially females, you're compromising yourself more and more longitudinally from a physiological perspective.
We talk about obviously weight gain, females post-comp. Obviously, you coach a lot of females too, and sometimes there's a bit of a struggle there.
Yeah.
Scotty said, don't go too slow, but I'm assuming also you're going to say don't go too fast either, because if you gain too much...
That does tend to happen.
Does happen.
Yeah.
Ask the question to him, but I'll ask to you, what is that calorie jump, the first calorie jump you give someone when you give them their reverse or recovery calories?
Yeah, I think it depends on, again, what you said, category is very important, level of condition. But I would say if I use a female athlete who is, say, somewhere between, let's just say 52 and 56 kilos as a guide, probably something like 800 to 900 would be my average. Depends on how lean they are. I think if I look at history, in the last 12 months has taught me a lot, just kind of validating what you said. If I look at all my examples from last year, some went really, really quick and some went a lot slower. They're probably all where they're supposed to be now anyway. I look at one of the people who went faster, I feel like she's built a lot more tissue.
Okay.
She seems to have accrued more muscle. Would she have accrued that muscle anyway if she did go slower? Maybe. But the numbers she's lifting in the gym now far exceed what she's ever lifted before. She's definitely was accelerated in the early days, not quite to the example that we gave, but definitely faster than what I had planned. But now looking back, it seems to have been what was right for her. Her relationship with food was way better. Last time, with a different coach, she had lots of issues for a long time. That's all gone. And now we're at a point where her weight just won't go up.
Okay.
So then I've got some people who went more traditional, slower, which is what I was kind of enforcing. And I feel like maybe next time I would have gone a little bit faster with those people.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that's evolved for me, and it's also around spending more time with you guys and just having way more examples as evidence, is I think I prefer a little bit faster than a little bit slower.
I feel the same way too.
Yeah.
Unless the athlete gives you resistance,
Yeah.
because they don't want to gain that fast, because they don't want to let go of the aesthetic, but you just have to coach them through that process of letting go of that aesthetic.
Yeah, I think I've been using more so the management of food focus to pull the levers in that reverse and prioritizing, yes, health and yes, recovery, but using food focus as a side. And as it's getting less and less, that's been a really good gauger for me to decide what to do next. So switching from your overall picture, which I still look at, but really focusing on where your food motivation is at, and using that as a guide for, when to bump food, as well as, of course, the scale and the aesthetic. But yeah, I'm definitely leaning more on the side. If I was 3 to 5%, I'm probably definitely 5 now. I'm maybe more 5 to 7.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And in terms of like this is where a lot of people get confused. What am I basing that 5 to 7 off? I'm not basing it off them at their absolute flattest and leanest.
Yeah.
I'm basing that off the topped up version of them.
Yeah.
Because if you're flat, just filling yourself out, you might put 2 kilos on it.
That's right.
All of a sudden, it's like, I was only supposed to put on 3. It's not really a true indication of
so
where you're at.
When you're adding, you need to be 3% above your state or your weight, or add 5%. That's above the topped up weight, not the depleted weight.
Definitely,
because it wouldn't make
you
any
can
sense.
do that like that night. So I do it from that. Yeah,
it makes sense.
And you're also using visuals too, because you can tell the difference between someone. Let's say that you've got a female and they're at their bottom end, they're at like 50 kilos. If they're 52.5, let's say they're 50 kilos topped up, they're 52.5, 53 at say day 14 of post show. You know that aesthetically it's going to be a different look at that weight. They're still going to look pretty damn impressive, but they're not like striated. They're not as crisp as they were. And again, it's important to, I think as well, one of the things I always touch on, physique looks great. You look a lot fuller now. Training's awesome. And I think that's another thing, is celebrating that physique, but also what that physique is allowing you to do.
Yeah.
You're getting sleep now. You're able to train. Your recovery markers are way up.
Yeah.
So I think, as you said, definitely losing the old stigma that you've got to reverse out slow doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if I use an example, Matty Papa, who just did Bali, he is a perfect example. We've put 5 on, and now we've been able to hold that 5 for more than 10 days. His whole life has changed. He looks amazing. I love the look of him 5 kilos heavier. His composition's still good. His energy's, it's going to get better still, but it's already improved so much. Even, cognitively, his ability to conversate with people, he just looks like a different person. And now he's able to slow down and stay in control without feeling the need to overdo things. He's had functions. He's still been in control, but that first 5 kilos came on pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it made a difference.
One of the questions the next question was, what's the mindset shift that needs to happen after you step off stage? And I think you covered a lot of those things when you said not only aesthetically how you look, but how you're performing, your sleep, your food focus, your ability to be able to socialize now, do some things you couldn't do before, maybe shift your focus a little bit in your life, because prep is obviously all encompassing and can take a lot of your energy, a lot of your time. So sometimes post-comp, you try to tell people, go and do things you haven't been able to go and do that you couldn't do before. I'm not saying like
you're talking about activities.
Physical things,
stay busy that way. One of the things you said very early on in this episode, as in like early on in coaching bodybuilders, was to focus and make your main priority around performance numbers. You walk into the gym in prep, or you wake up in the morning and the scale's dictating a lot of people's success, whereas flip it and be like, I did 100 last week for 6, 105 for 6 today. Like that's because I've got the weight to do it now.
That's the mindset.
And if you prioritize that, so you become, I think you said back in the day, it was like, you are now built for performance, not built to be lean. And, you're walking with such a better attitude. The end of prep when every set is just like sucking.
Yeah.
It's heavy. That's gone now. Do you remember why you got into bodybuilding? Because you love lifting weights.
Yeah.
You love transforming. You love getting strong. You love growing. Go back to that guy.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So many people get demotivated in prep.
Well, they like the dieting side more.
Yeah, they hate the training.
But that's not why they got into bodybuilding. They got into it because they loved growing.
Yeah.
Now they're basing it on a look, but it's not where your passion started. Your passion started with growth, so go back to growth.
Yeah, I love it. What's the best way to structure your training in a reverse phase? Deload, maintain, build? Do you ever deload someone?
Yeah, I think it depends on the athlete. If they're feeling really banged up, like if it's a physique athlete, or when I say physique athlete, like let's say that it's an athlete that competes in more of the muscular divisions. If it's a men's physique, classic physique, bodybuilder, or a figure athlete that has been training really hard and they're really, really conditioned, then usually I'll give them probably 2 or 3 days of no weights at all, maybe some light cardio, not even usually in the gym. Usually I want you to go for 2 45-minute walks a day, and one of them I want you to make sure that you go with your kids or you go with your wife or your partner, so that it's something that you're doing together.
Yeah.
And then from there, introducing those movements, let's say that they've got clusters, usually the back end, most of my athletes, everyone thinks that towards the back end you're training harder. I usually scale volume back in terms of the actual total set volume, but I'll keep the intensity high. So they may still have a top set on a deadlift, and maybe they don't actually have a back off set. It's more isolation work. So it might be that you're still keeping those movements in, but I'll give some recommendations. Let's say that they're pulling, I don't know, 160. They've been doing that for 6. I want you to pull 140. I want you to just do 1 set of 8, something like that. And then again, reduce that total volume. And then week 2, start to reintroduce a little bit more. I'd rarely do a complete overhaul of the program. I'll usually try and elongate it because I want them to get back to that sort of 2 weeks past that feeling good. And then let's continue to build on this so that by the time they're sort of 6 weeks post-comp, they're sort of sitting there itching like, can we go now? Like, is it time to pull the switch? And I'm saying 1 more week. And again, internally, they don't even realize, but they're starting to now focus. I want to start training again. And it, it rekindles that love and that passion, because at the back end of prep, training really is an arduous task. Fuck, I've got to go in and do that. Versus when you're well fed and you can sleep, I want to get better.
You want to kick the door down.
Yeah, like let me
here.
release the shackles. And there's also that element. Some athletes that I'm like, I want them to be a bit well fed for a bit longer and have a little bit more body mass, because I know this athlete and I know the way that they're wired. And sometimes I need to get them out of their own way. So before we tick that box and now we can send it, there's some markers that I want to see like absolutely textbook. And that also kind of increases their level of adherence to, I want to make sure I can do that, so that you're giving me clearance to go and do that your connective tissue health is good again. Because again, in those early stages, even in the first couple of weeks post-prep, you're still a strong candidate to get injured if you're very, very late.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you want to just, and there's levels to that, to getting to the point where every workout you feel good, but also they're noticing that I'm not as sore as what I was, obviously because you've got more food going in. And then they're also seeing the correlation. Maybe I'm looking a bit different, but I'm eating more. My recovery is definitely better. I'm not as sore. I can move more in the gym. And then usually around about week 6, they're in a position where it's time to get after it again.
Why am I a strong candidate to get injured when I'm fat?
Would you?
I think you just have a genetic predisposition for maybe just.
I think you're.
Someone's got a voodoo doll, I reckon.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Do you ever increase someone's training post-comp?
Or
or is it more a reduction? Because it sounds like you're talking about either maintaining or maybe slightly reducing.
Yeah, so another big thing for me over the last 12 months that's changed a lot is my management of people in the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
In terms of how much they're doing. And
6 to 8 weeks of the end of prep?
Yeah. Before the show.
Yep.
And focusing on like less sets, better quality, and like maybe 1 to 2 really good efforts on an exercise. That's been an absolute game changer.
Mm-hmm.
It's for me, the difference from that has been that people have continued to get leaner without as many plateaus as I was having.
Mm-hmm. What do you think that is? You think it's just like
just physical stress management,
fatigue? Yeah, okay.
Physical stress management, quality connect. Yeah, just like focusing on execution, not just like numbers and like going in there and moving weight around. Just they're getting more out of less sets.
Quality.
Yeah.
So are you also taking some exercises away that maybe are more fatiguing?
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So like maybe you might change it to a different squat pattern that's maybe not as fatiguing or whatever that may be.
Look, yeah, I might switch like a hack squat to a belt squat, or
yeah.
It just depends on the individual. But if they're going really well with it and it's a difficult movement, I'll still leave it, but it might go from 3 sets down to 2.
Sure.
And I'll have much longer rest periods.
Yeah.
But the other thing that plays in for me is like if you've had someone who's done 2 shows 2 weekends in a row, they've really had 2 kind of deload weeks anyway. So if it was someone that just had a 4-week gap, did a show, I would do the same squatting. If they did 2 shows in a row and they've kind of already had 2 deloads,
already,
I'll probably won't make much of a change. I won't increase anything. I definitely won't increase anything, but I tell them they can get after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like a guy that hasn't really trained legs or twice in 15 or 16 days.
Yeah.
And they've probably already put 3 kilos on post-show in that first day.
Yeah.
I'm normally pretty happy for them to get after it.
The only thing that I would add to everything is that if someone is maybe they've done their last show, maybe they're going to have a hiatus for a long time, maybe they're going to shift their life focus, I might pull a training day away.
Yeah.
Just like instead of a 5-day week, that's a 4-day week. Spend a little more time on your business, on your family, whatever that may be. So I've done that.
And also 4 days are probably better.
It feels more achievable to them too. Now they start to enjoy it. They're like, I've got an extra day up my sleeve.
Without a doubt.
So I would do that sometimes, depending on what someone's goal is in future.
Yeah, I like that.
But otherwise, align with.
I actually do that in the back end of prep with certain athletes as a means of if we're trying to get leaner, again, making sure that volume alignment might be slightly down, we can get what we need to done in 5 days into 4 days. There's another day there that you can plug on cardio, or there's another day there that I want you to actually go and pursue some recovery. So I want you to go and do some sauna. I want you to go and do some water contrast therapy to get some physical therapy as a means of doing that. But sometimes just not having to wake as early, a bit more sleep, less is more, and having that ability to do that. I think this is the thing in physique sports. Everyone thinks you need to do more, as opposed to looking at what you're doing and really auditing, is the quality there? Is the training that I'm doing, is it junk, or is it like there's, again, use the example of time, intensity retains density. Rather have an athlete go in there and have one really, really good top set, and then, okay, we don't need to do a back off on that one because the systemic fatigue to go with the peripheral fatigue that you accumulate, it's not worth it. We've got what we need to get there. It's actually not that hard to retain muscle. You don't need copious amounts of volume, but you do need to expose that tissue to a stress that warrants your body to hold on to it. So, leaving 5 or 6 in the tank is probably not going to be your best bet. But if you're going to go and, like, let's say you have someone like an Nerida, for example, who she'll be someone who she does 2 deadlift sets on her EB day. She alternates. She only trains 4 days a week. She doesn't train 5 days. So she does 8 sessions a fortnight, and she alternates her EB push, EB pull. But when she gets down to the back end, she'll deadlift once a fortnight, as she does now, but it will probably just be 1 set. But it will be emphasized that this set is the set of the fortnight. You need to rinse it out because you've got 13 days to then recover from it. And that's a means of, again, it won't have to be crazy amounts of volume, but it's enough for her to tell her posterior chain, we need this, so you can hang on to it. But she doesn't then need to do, hundreds of just crappy volume sets. And I think as soon as you understand that, the physique's so much more predictable because you're also not accumulating unnecessary edema as a result of just giving them what they need rather than just trying to throw more.
Yeah. Most of the athletes over the years, especially the last 18 months, that I've spoken to post some comps and some preps that weren't optimal, the theme is the same. It's more. And even from a set perspective, it's like I started prep on 28 sets and by the end I was up to 40. It's like, how's that person supposed to sustain that while they're getting leaner and leaner and leaner, doing more and more cardio, and they run out of rope, right? We've spoken about it so many times. And I think people are fearful of the less is more philosophy because it's like, I'm regressing, I'm giving away potential. You're going to end up in a place you can't get out of.
It sounds counterintuitive though. Yeah. And that's what people restrain against it.
And it just comes with time. Like, you do it, you're like, oh, it worked.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to give everybody is we spent years doing that. You don't need to do that with your clients, and you'll have, for us, the reason why it's beneficial for us is people stay in the sport for longer.
Of course.
And we want the sport to be strong. We want the best athletes to stay around. And that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Great athletes were just stopping.
Yeah, fizzling out, yeah.
Because how do you want to go back and do 40 sets on a 26-week prep when you're on an hour of cardio a day and no calories?
Yeah.
No one wants to go back and do that again.
No.
But done correctly with, the right people in your corner, preps can be enjoyable. And you do want to do them again and again when they're done correctly.
Yeah. What role does tracking play post-comp? When to keep it tight versus when to loosen up? I think they're talking about food tracking.
I was going to say, you mean like me, how I have the tracking on your car so I know where you are? It works really easy. I've got an app, right? I just open it up and it tells me where Chimboli is, either in the kitchen or he's in the garage looking at the car, or he's at his dad's getting salami. That's it.
Tracking, food tracking, post-comp. Do you loosen it up, stay tight, somewhere in between?
Yeah, so I'll usually give them a meal plan, and they'll have, like they do when they're in their normal meal plan, they have a condiment/calorie allowance they can liberate to whatever they want. But more often than not, this is my recommendation of how you would allocate the macros, etc. And then they'll either duplicate it and then make some tweaks, and then I'll sign off on it. Be happy for me to do that. And then again, there's always still that little buffer of they can have, might be like 200 or 150 calories a day that they can allocate to, it could be some mochi balls, or maybe it's
could be a rainbow paddle pop.
Yeah.
Maybe it's it is. Yep. So more or less like that, and they have that control. And then usually once they've got those baselines, as I'm then allocating more carbohydrate, or if it's more fat, I'll give recommendations in that check-in of where I would allocate it to. And I'm always offering, if you want me to give you that guidance, but I then start to encourage giving the reins over so that they start to have some more control over they're making those decisions. But again, more or less building it around the foundation. So we don't want to go from, you know, smaller amounts of carbohydrate to then all of a sudden you want to eat huge amounts, and then different sources. Try and keep it very, very consistent, and then just gradually integrate it each week. Maybe it's a new food. Maybe it's something that's got a little bit more fat per grammage, but it's not something that you're doing straight away. So little things like that, it gives them that control, and it's gradually handing the reins over. And then eventually, again, by that sort of 6 to 8 week mark, most of the athletes I work with tend to eat the same sort of foods anyway. And it's just sort of plug and play on some miscellaneous things. And it's easier for them to do that. And I think their relationship with food thereafter is usually better too.
But it is tracking though. Did they have any,
Yeah, so most
do they have any untracked meals? Like, okay, once a week you can flexibly go out with your family, have a breakfast or whatever it is. Or...
So I'll usually, I'll say to them, even from the start in those first 2 weeks, ideally, if you can, I'm happy for you. Like, say that I've been craving pizza. If you want to make a homemade pizza, do that at home. You don't have to weigh everything, make it as you want to make it. But for the first 2 weeks, maybe just let's have one of those meals a week.
Sure.
Have your pizza, have your toppings, use whatever you want on it. I guarantee it's going to be better than if you go to the pizza shop and you're going to get 3 times the amount and you're going to feel very, very ill.
Yeah.
And then after that point, it's just, again, if you want to have an untracked meal, you're welcome. Obviously, go nuts, go ahead and do that. But most of the time, I don't know if it's just the athletes that I tend to work with, but it'll be like a steak or maybe a parma and some chips and salad, and that's fine. They'll, again, without me even having to tell them, it's roughly 1,000 calories. They'll sort of make it fit. It's never going to be perfect. It may be plus or minus, but I'm like, as long as you have that, and again, the next day you're just getting back to basics. Again, if you use that premise that a kilo of mixed human tissue is 6,000 calories, roughly 6,500. If you're in a surplus of say 200 or 300 calories or 400 calories a day, to gain a kilo of that mixed human tissue, again, you've got to really go above those maintenance. So if your weight skyrocket, it's because more often than not it's sodium. It's also an increase maybe in fats. So there's a delay in transit time, gastric emptying. There's more sodium in the blood, so you hold more fluid. But more often than not, after that meal, 2 or 3 days later, you're back at baseline.
Are you doing something similar?
Yeah,
you're telling them to track, but then there's some untracked.
I suppose the only difference would be, like, if they're going to go out on a Saturday night with family they haven't been for ages, is I'll even interject and be like, all right, I want you, let's say you're on 2.5, have 1,500 calories leading up to that meal, leave 1,000 for that meal, go out and then don't. That's probably the only difference.
You leave like a bit of a buffer or a budget.
Yeah, and I'll be reasonable. I still expect them to go slightly over, but like Scotty said, if you look at the pizza example, if you're 1,000 calories over versus 3,500 calories over, it's a much better place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing with the off-track meal. If I tell you to leave 1,000 for it and it's 1,600, it's okay. I can allow for that sort of flex, but if you're 3,000 over, and that will typically lead to that happening again and again and again. So it's about prevention too.
Yeah, got you. How do you know when your metabolism is ready to handle more food?
The metabolism or their digestion?
Metabolism, it says here.
Yeah, like when they're due for the next calorie bump.
Yeah,
so
basically.
Well, look, scales a big piece of it. Like if you're again, there's so many things that go into scale weight. So, if you're consistent and your steps are the same, your training's the same, you're roughly eating the same foods, around the same times for 3 weeks straight, and your scale's not moving and you should be growing, it's probably time for a bump.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Anything on that?
But if you're changing foods all the time, if you're sleeping like shit, you're partying, you're bringing alcohol into the equation, if there's so many variables, best thing you can do is get consistent, wait 3 weeks.
If you're deep in the off season though, and you're in your peak sort of weight, and you've got a decent amount of fat mass, and you're getting a decent amount of sleep, and you're eating, roughly 2 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein, and you're exposing your body to a stimulus that's not accustomed to every time, you can still acquire tissue without having to be in an aggressive surplus. And this is something that I'm probably more aligned with now, thinking that you always want to see it go up, and then as soon as you hit that ceiling, straight away run a tide out, versus I like holding and maintaining phases. And even me personally, I would say I've been in one for like almost 8 months, and as long as my numbers are going up in the gym and you can see that there's definitely some change aesthetically, then that's fine. If anything, you're going to see some shift there. But if you're in that introductory phase and you're 3 or 4 months out of prep or 6 months out of prep, then that's a different story. But if you're talking about, let's say it's a 3-year off season and you're in year 2 and you're happy, your performance is good, you feel good, you're not phased about body composition, and all of those markers are being ticked, then you don't necessarily have to see, and it shouldn't be every week either. Rather, looking at it like a fortnightly or a monthly bandwidth of rate of gain, you might see half a kilo over 4 weeks. But if you've got someone that's in a controlled surplus, say like Timsy has been in a controlled surplus since he finished his prep and isn't anywhere near his ceiling.
No.
He's bigger, his numbers are better.
That's because of the monster, obviously.
Yeah, it could be.
It's hitting the ceiling. You said it's hitting the monsters. The cans are
He
hitting the
bought
ceiling.
a lot of monsters, didn't he?
I know he did. He's a copious monster.
He's an outrageous man.
Yeah, he is.
But that,
He's a good example. He's a good
Yeah,
example.
he doesn't need to, and he's still able to perform well, and his numbers are getting better. If his numbers were shifting, and again you're seeing under recoverability and things of that nature, maybe you might throw more at it. And he still does have to have increases, but it's less frequently.
And I think that, like with him as a perfect example, the times you probably see his numbers dropping are from lack of sleep, not from nutrition.
And so many people just don't. It's so easy to. It's almost like a badge of honor. Or I eat X amount of cal. Eating more food isn't a win. Like when you have
balls.
Yeah, it's. Actually, I would much rather be in a deficit than be over satiated, because when you have to do that day in day out, it's not that much fun. But again, not grabbing the low hanging fruit. Sleep is so important. Or your training intensity. Are your numbers? Oh, I'm sort of stagnated. Are you going hard? Are you leaning into your arousal levels? Like you really tapping into that, sympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system, where you're going into a set and you're getting after it. Like, if I don't make this set or I don't hit this number, like something bad's going to happen. That's the mentality that you need to have. And you look at the top tier athletes, and that's the way that they're wired.
How important is meal timing during recovery compared to in prep? Is meal timing more important in recovery? Would you do anything different from a meal time?
As in like recovery phase coming out of contest prep?
Yeah, compared to prep itself.
I think in prep, you're probably more inclined to maybe start your meals a bit later. I can deal with being a bit hungrier.
Yeah.
Versus when you're in that recovery phase, there should be no need, because you want to start fueling from the get-go. You're also eating more food, so I would argue that if you're trying to backload a huge amount of food digestively, it's not going to be ideal. So if you can sort of eat every 4 to 5 hours, there's no like golden rule, but digestively, I mean, I don't know about you, but I find if I eat every sort of 3 to 4 hours, I find that I can get a good amount of food in.
Yeah.
But
so you're probably changing your meal time based on your hunger in prep. Because for me, like, I'd do the same. I would try to start the first meal as late as possible, and I'd have the last meal as late as possible.
Yeah, like you're literally tucking yourself in with a peach in your mouth.
Yeah. Whereas in recovery or in the improvement season,
it's when you feel like it.
You get up, you have breakfast, and you start from there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're also more aware of the time that you're, depending when you're training. Like when you're in prep, like if you're in the off season now, I'm guessing you just eat the same meals based on whatever time I'm training. I do that, except maybe if before you train, it'll be definitely lower fat, lower fiber. But in prep, you're pretty religious. It's at the same time, and you're also training around that. But some people, most people I know, are able to get through with being a little bit hungrier, being a bit busier, more productive in the morning. I know I am, because you do your work block. Maybe you train late morning, early afternoon, and then I actually eat more food later in the day, because I find that my sleep is better, and I'm better if I go to bed satiated. And then training off one meal the next day is fine, because that dinner meal is almost like
fuel
minus, you know, your pre-meal minus 2. So
my sleep has definitely improved since coming back and eating late again. Because I get home to the gym at 8:30, so dinner's been about 9. Maybe I'm just really tired too, but I definitely feel a lot easier going to bed with a full stomach and like staying asleep.
How do you assess weak points from the last prep and plan for them in your next training split? So do you normally do an analysis of your athletes?
Yeah, so like based on whatever feedback you get from the federation, from the judges, you probably, any decent, reasonable coach probably has their own assessment of what needs to improve. But I'll literally grab some photos, put a Word document together, positives, negatives, almost like, a SWOT analysis that you do, but more just, great areas and not so great areas, vulnerable areas, and then like in each pose, what needs to change, if anything, and then base the training program on that, which you gave a great presentation about in Bali, a lecture in the retreat, which was, you should be answering this question, because it was pretty much that.
Yeah, it's pretty much
just for an hour. So, ladies and gentlemen, grab some popcorn and
come to the retreat next time. Yeah.
That's it.
How about you, Scotty? Do you assess someone's physique when they obviously have their last stage photos? It's probably a really good time too, because they're lean. You can see what's really there, and then you can have a good assessment of, okay, what we need to do moving forward in the next training program.
Yeah, and I think you can also get a lot from comparing. Say you have an athlete that doesn't win or doesn't get their pro card, and the person who did, the difference was they had more tissue there. You're seeing the division, what's being rewarded. You're taking on judging feedback. This is where I think you need to grow, is where you need to improve. Again, you don't necessarily need to throw all that volume in straight away. Once we're recovered, these are the areas that we're going to focus on. It could be, you're still just lacking in that upper clavicular region. You need more tissue there. And so maybe on your push days, again, chest or horizontal pressing based movements, they're the first movements before your shoulder based movements. Or if it's the other way around, you're lacking in shoulders, maybe on your push day, you're allocating more volume towards shoulders, but also it's done earlier in the workout. Or if you lack calf development, like anyone that's tall, put my hand up.
Yeah, well, we got the best calves we're talking about.
Then your
Talia's are bigger than mine. Not even it's not a joke.
But then you're allocating that. For example, I start every leg day and I actually train carbs 3 times a week, and I do my carbs before any other big compound movement. Whereas I never really used to do that because I'm like, fuck.
Are you training carbs now because you want to do classic physique, or is it a men's physique?
No, I just don't want to walk around with
skinny carbs. Okay.
Like
what have we got here?
Like that's like what I'll do. That's Luke's. It's like literally his. So it's strengths and weaknesses.
So MG's
the time there. It's basically the timeline, what he needs to improve on, what the judges' feedback was, and which areas we're going to target over what period of time, basically.
Yeah, perfect. And then basically from a training perspective, as you said, most of those weak points you'll do them more often in your training week, and you probably do them first.
For sure. And there's also an integrative period with that, because you can't just go, you might have someone they're really lacking in chest. They've been doing maybe 12 sets of chest a week. I'm giving you fucking 24.
20. Yeah.
And then straight away I'm way too sore. So you might say, and I actually I have a tab that I track each meso, the volume that's allotted to each muscle group, so that I can see where we've tracked it, if recovery is good. And sometimes, and more often than not, there's always a period where there's a line, and again, the optimal amount of volume for any athlete is the amount that they can produce good quality training performance, but they can also recover from that. And so it's finding where that line is. And again, there's nothing wrong with having periods where you might run a specialization phase in order to allow for, say, it's arm specific. You might allocate more volume there, and so you've got to pull a little bit of volume out from somewhere else, rather than just following a set split, 20 sets of everything.
Yeah. Kahuna's the app
does
that. It does track per body part per week.
Yeah.
As when you're building the program, it gives you that.
And if you're putting in new
exercises, you can keep an eye on it because it graphs it all. So there's some tools out there that can help you do it too. So if you're not confident in, what exercise allotment is per muscle group, because some have multiple.
And that's one thing I like about Kahuna is you can add in multiple muscle groups.
You can put 0.5 of a set to something if it's not the main contributor, but
it's secondary or whatever it is.
And you can literally graph each exercise.
Oh, can you graph it? I didn't realize you could
over a week, over 12 months.
That's pretty cool.
And you can see if somebody's linearly progressive or if it's like, you're just not getting bang for buck on this.
Yeah.
And the graph shows you.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Or if someone's being lazy, it's a really easy way to find out. It's like, hey,
you
haven't added anything to this for 3 months,
Yeah, I didn't realize it did
and
that.
Sometimes when they see it, it's like, oh shit. And the next time they go in, every single bloody time, the numbers go up.
Oh, yeah. When you tell them that you're checking it.
The graph.
Yeah.
Bloody graph.
Let's end on this one. How early to start your prep for season 8? And what indicators tell you you're ready? Because obviously a lot of people are going to be starting their prep soon, or maybe have already started for season 8. For us, IFBB just released their dates. I think I was talking to you about this before. It was awesome to see that they put in all the shows for mid-year for the natural season, which I'm excited about. So really trying to solidify that season and make it grow as much as possible.
Yeah.
Kudos to them for, putting it out there and actually trying to put in a natural show for every single state, which is awesome. But they've put all their dates out. Their season A is a little bit earlier than the natty shows. Most of the natty shows are starting in that kind of April, May time period, where they're starting a little bit earlier. But when are people normally starting their prep? Have you got anyone that's doing A that started already?
Yeah, so all of mine for season A have started prep.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I've got an athlete who's just doing pro shows and FMG, which is
Later, yeah.
So mine are 1 week away from starting.
Yeah, same.
But it's just, how many weeks out to the shows? And
it depends really when your first show is.
Yeah, when you first.
And also your starting point based on your pre-prep period and where they're at.
Yeah. The only reason mine haven't is because their shows are the last shows.
It's a little bit later, yeah.
So, and it's Jinjin, so everyone will know who she never really gets, ridiculously out of shape. I think she competed at 48 kilos last time. I think she was 57 this morning. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
She's well within striking distance. So we're going to spend a little bit more time just with calories a bit higher, and because we've got ample time still.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of work to do. She generally pulls fat mass off pretty consistently. So I've prepped her multiple times. I'm confident how her body responds. So where she used to be a 28-week plan, I can confidently put 26 aside now and know that I'm still going to be okay.
Yeah.
So
cool. Maybe people might ask us some questions about season A prep and prepping over Christmas, New Year's, those kind of periods, and we can help them out with that. So
well, I've always done season A. I love being lean over summer. So for me, it is kind of like a bit of a badge of honor. It's like all the do's and functions and everybody's partying and on holidays, and I'm the one with the container. So that's I use that as my motivator. But I like being lean when it's warm.
Maybe we can.
You like being that shredded guy.
The shredded guy.
I do. I can't walk all here, but
you can't walk all here.
You see, I'm one of those guys. I walk on the beach. I pull the shirt off, like okay, and then I start to move, and it's like, they're like, oh, that's not as that's not as impressive as I thought. As I get my walking frame out, it's like.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Good.